It literally is training you to look for flaws in every potential partner.
You're not training for marriage, you're training for divorce.
Oh, I must be married to the wrong person.
Maybe let us know if she should have swiped right or left on me. You're listening to Let's Get Naughty,
a podcast for real talk and honest conversations about all things relationships and marriage. The good, the bad, and the naughty.
Whether you're already married, almost married, or wanting to get married, we're here to help you build a solid foundation for a love that lasts. Let's get naughty, y'all.
So welcome back to the podcast.
Today we are going to talk about soulmates.
Soulmates, the one, how to know if you found the one, how to find the one.
I feel like finding the one, soulmates, it's just everywhere. It's a huge part of, especially just the American culture of you have to go find your one.
Yeah, and this is a conversation we have a lot with couples and like people asking, how do you know? You'll know when you know, right? Like all this talk about how you know when you found the right person, how to find your soulmate. So we're going to talk about our beliefs on this, what research shows, and some ways that we believe you could know you found the right person.
Yeah, let's do this.
So we actually looked this up, and 60% of the surveyed American population believes in a soulmate. Only 23% believe no, that you don't necessarily have a soulmate, and then 18% are unsure, which I'm not really sure how that adds up because 23 plus 18 is 41, but must be rounded numbers.
Yeah, it's just rounded.
There's an extra 1% in there somewhere. Knowing that most of our culture believes in soulmates, like where do you think we get this concept from?
I think people have read too many. Is it Nicholas Sparks?
Yeah,
it's a
Nicholas Sparks. That's right.
And like too many Nicholas Sparks books, and too many cheesy bad movies that I would love to make fun of, but probably don't have time. But I think a good one is like The Notebook. When what is it? What do they say? Like, if I'm a bird, you're a bird, or if you're a bird, I'm a bird.
Is that the definition of a soulmate?
I don't even know what that means, but I feel like that's what the culture is trying to tell us, is that you just got to find your other bird. Yeah,
I mean, culture, no questions asked. I mean, even if you just think about like romantic comedies, romance novels, but especially like in movies and television, I feel like most rom-coms are like the finding of the person, and then it just like ends like, okay, I found my person, like happily ever after.
That's the happy ever after.
Yeah. And so we definitely have been taught this idea that the hard work is in finding your person, but once you've found your person, then you live happily ever after, and the work is over, and you just get to like live in ecstasy forever.
Yes, just finding love is the journey.
Right.
And then the journey is end. You just see movie credits following that.
Yeah. And so I know that sounds silly because we can say like, well, obviously we know that that's not true. Like we know that that's just a movie, but still, I think that concept is just ingrained in us. Like, even if you know that there's a lifetime of marriage after that, I think that we can still fall for that idea that if I find the right person, I'm going to live happily ever after.
Yes.
So I feel like the best thing we can do in this episode is just come right out and say it. We don't believe in soulmates.
We do not believe in soulmates.
I think, at least in like the very cultural concept of this. So we feel like, as crazy as it sounds, because our romanticized culture is probably like scoffing at us saying this, but like, I don't think you're my soulmate. I don't think you're the only man I could have married and had a happy life with.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like it could be like harsh or mean or not romantic at all, but I think we know that to be true, and knowing that to be true and admitting that has actually, I feel like, really blessed our marriage, right?
Yeah, I think it's been an interesting conversation that we've had a lot of conversations, probably too many around, just like
maybe
the curiosity of just our dating and marriage process that we follow, especially in just Western culture, of, you date to find the one, and I mean, you know me, I'm kind of a numbers skeptic over here. And I start doing the math, and if there's 1 in 7.7 billion out there.
Well, to be fair, half of them are men, so that cuts that number in half for you.
Okay, so
but still.
Okay, I think, yeah. So let's just
we'll round down to 3 billion.
But then, you know, even if you start taking out the people who don't speak the same language, or you might never
within
have
your
a chance.
General age bracket.
You start doing the numbers, and you're either never going to run into your soulmate, or you're never going to like find the opportunity to connect with them. Most people only know like 600 people. I think that was the statistic we looked up.
Oh, really? 600?
Yeah. And so basically, if you believe in a soulmate, like, there's a good chance you're not going to meet that person. And I think that also is a limiting belief towards marriage.
Yeah, that's the important part. Because my more romantic brain is like what you just said, like just the numbers of anyone on the planet and finding your soulmate. Like that doesn't really do it for me. But just for me, it has been helpful to process. I think it really comes down to fundamentally, like, what do you believe is the purpose of marriage? And like foundationally, what are your beliefs around marriage and love, like just love in general? Because we know to be true that love is a choice, like we talked about in episode 4 or 5. One of the ones where we shared what we wish we knew before we got married. I don't know if it was part 1 or part 2, episode 4 or 5. Love being a choice, not a feeling. Like us really basing our marriage on that truth. That's a big part of what informs our belief that we don't think there's just one person out there, right? Like, because I know that the success of our marriage and the happiness of our marriage is more about us both putting in the work and choosing each other and choosing unity and like choosing to love each other. To me, that automatically correlates with knowing that I could do that with someone else that was committed to me as well. And I think that, as crazy as it sounds, if you're like really stuck on this idea of having a soulmate, like it actually frees you up a lot to know that you're not missing out if you picked the wrong person, quote unquote. It's more about like picking a person and committing to life with them.
Yeah, I think that's the question, is when people picture their soulmate, what are they picturing? And I think a lot of people would, if you ask them, you know, roll out their long list and say, oh, well, let me start reading you these things. And the reality is that no one is ever going to live up to all of those fantasies that we have in our head about what a partner can be. And that's just the reality. No one can live up to that.
Yeah. So with that, I think there's 2 really fundamental truths that kind of inform this whole thing. Number 1, you will marry an imperfect person.
Absolutely.
Like there is not a perfect person on the face of this planet. And there's not even a perfect person for you that just like matches all your perfect and imperfections. It's like you will marry an imperfect person. You will marry a flawed person with baggage and sins and brokenness. Like that is just the nature of living as a human in a broken world. And so the other side of that, the step 2, the truth number 2, is that you will have to work and put in work and effort and sacrifice into your marriage to live in unity with that imperfect, broken person that you commit your life to. And I think that's the most important piece of this conversation.
Yeah, I think there's even a truth you missed there. Something that we always look for is we look for marriage as something that completes us. And you are not a perfect person going into that marriage. So you're not going to find a perfect person and things will just not be perfect. And the idea of a soulmate is that there is something perfect out there, but that's just really a fantasy out there that just isn't true. I think something we find really interesting on this is just how different cultures address the idea of marriage. And I think this really, you know, it gives us a different perspective on soulmates. And so something that we're just fascinated by, because we just love to talk about these things, is arranged marriage.
I am not so shamefully obsessed with the show Married at First Sight.
Okay, Molly is like a huge fan.
I don't watch much reality TV, and in fact, I have very strong feelings about traditional reality TV like The Bachelor.
The Bachelor.
No shame if you watch it. I'm only judging you a little. I'm just kidding.
She's judging you a lot. Molly is so strongly
No, I
against The
just have
Bachelor.
very strong feelings about the fact that I think it is so incredibly toxic to our culture. Playing into this conversation that we're having right now. But I love Married at First Sight. If you haven't watched it, it is essentially a concept that these people...
Do they get married at first sight?
Yeah, they get married at first sight. They apply for the show, and essentially a team of experts, including some people I like fangirl over at this point. Pastor Cal, Dr. Pepper, they're like... oh my gosh, if we could get them on this podcast, I would faint. I would love to meet them. Essentially, they... after learning about these people, they make educated matches on who they think could be a great match, and they marry each other before they know each other. They walk down the aisle to a stranger and they get married, and then the show is an 8-week process of watching them in their first 8 weeks of marriage, navigating being married to a stranger and learning about a stranger. And then of course the show is set up where 8 weeks in, there's decision day where they decide if they're going to stay married or get a divorce. So, you know, it's a show. It's reality TV. But I just love the show, and I love how it is so different from most other reality television dating shows out there, because you start with commitment. It's kind of like the opposite approach, right? Like you start with commitment and you see if you can make it work. And obviously a lot of the couples don't work out, but a lot of them do. There's some amazing stories from the show. But that is like kind of the modern American take. Obviously reality TV style.
It's pretty bad still because it's still reality TV. So
yeah,
Molly may be fanning over it, but
I'm saying that's like them trying to like take the concept of arranged marriage into our modern culture. But yeah, we actually, again, looked up some stats on arranged marriage. We found a lot of information specifically about India, because even today, about 90% of marriages in India are arranged.
It's just very interesting. It's such a different perspective that, you know, your parents or the people making the arrangement might know better than we know.
Yeah.
In making that match. And, or, you know, maybe they're not even matching it for, you know, compatibility, but just for family relations.
Yeah,
or
family values.
Values.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, there's a lot of reasons that arranged marriages are made.
Yeah.
But do you want to read them the stats?
Yeah. Okay. So we all know that in America right now, the divorce rate is close to 50%. Even in America, the divorce rate among arranged marriages is only 4%. So we go from 50 to 4%. Even if you're on the conservative side of 40%, because some people say 40 to 50% of divorce in America, even that, it's still 90% lower among arranged marriages. And then in India, where 90% of marriages are arranged, they only have a 1% divorce rate.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That's so crazy.
So, and we wanted to like give context to this. Obviously, we know that there's a lot of nuance to this, and there's different cultural expectations. Like we're not experts on Indian culture. We know that there's like different laws or expectations or just like cultural conversation around divorce. Like we know that this is more complex than just saying they get divorced less.
Right. Divorce rates aren't the only measure.
But there are stats showing that they are just as happy, if not more happy, in arranged marriages than they are in what they call love matches or love marriages, where you marry just for love. Disclaimer, we're not saying based off these stats we know everything about arranged marriages, but we just think it's really fascinating. I just think that our generation in America, like we can't even fathom the idea of an arranged marriage but what's so crazy is it wasn't even that many generations ago that concept wasn't totally foreign to us, even here in this country. And we just like with culture, we just think that that's like the worst thing in the world. But what we find, and as I was researching this, it was really interesting, the different things that play into that happiness going into an arranged marriage. And a lot of it just has to do with like expectations. When you go into an arranged marriage, you are not expecting everything to be easy and perfect, but you're coming into it with a commitment on a different kind of level based on like different things than just your feelings and your happiness, you know, like there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I think it's kind of the opposite of what we described earlier, where, you know, a lot of times we think that the journey of love and of relationships is getting to the marriage line, where they are starting at the marriage line and they're saying, we have no foundation and we have to work at this.
Yeah.
And it's such a different concept and something that I think is just a different mindset that we could really learn from.
Yeah.
And that marriage takes work.
Yeah.
Having a successful relationship,
right.
Building intimacy, knowing your partner. Your partner is different now than they were 6 months ago, 2 years ago. And it's a constant learning journey.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that's a whole other layer of like going into marriage from a love marriage, in quotations, like what we call that. We think because we've chosen our partner that we know them and we know who they are. And so we often can come into marriage just expecting them to be what we think they are and not being a student of our spouse and studying them and how they change, because they will change and grow and evolve. And so that's a different, like you said, a different angle coming into an arranged marriage. Like you immediately are just a student of your spouse because it's not necessarily someone you know or love at that point.
So I think this is just an interesting concept and just perspective of something different than probably a lot of what we know or think about for love and for marriage, is that there are other ways that it's been done in the past and that it's done around the world right now. And when we talk about the one, our soulmate, it's not as simple as there's just one person out there. And you don't just need to find that person. That is not the only way you're going to have a long, successful happiness in the future.
Yeah. So with this, I wanted to mention 2 reasons why we think this concept of soulmates and this obsession with finding your perfect match is harmful and causes stress and strain in relationships, in dating, in our culture, and in marriages and divorce rates. So the first one is just that when you believe there's one perfect match for you, it literally is training you to look for flaws in every potential partner. And I have told you this so many times. I am so freaking thankful we met in college and I never had to do the dating app scene. Like, I can't imagine if I was trying to find a spouse right now. My heart goes out to people who are currently dating because it sounds very challenging. But so I'm not going to claim to be a dating app expert because I've never been on one.
Would you swipe left or right on me?
I quite literally don't know which one is
the good one. Know either.
I think swiping right is good, right? Like, oh, I'd swipe right.
Okay. Well,
I think I've heard that like swiping right is a good thing.
Maybe let us know if she should have swiped right or left on me, what that actually means.
But I just think it's important that we acknowledge that as a culture, if that is the vast majority of our dating happening in our society right now, just understanding that if you go into that with this belief that you're trying to find your perfect match and you have this app full of thousands of single people, potential matches, like every time you go on a date and find something slightly off-putting about someone, how easy is it just to say like, oh, they must not be right for me. Like, let me go check out the next person. The internet and dating apps has just like expanded our ability to lean on that, you know, but like just that concept, even if you're not using a dating app, just that concept of looking for your perfect match, it's just like forcing you to look for what's wrong in any potential spouse, right? Don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when you're constantly looking at someone and just saying yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, or it's not just dating apps, it's just dating in general with how we do it, where it's so casual. When you are dating, you're not training for marriage, you're training for divorce. You're training yourself to find problems with someone, and rather than sit down and work on yourself and work on that person, just to bail and to leave.
Yeah, that's so true. Serial dating, modern dating is not training for marriage, it's training for divorce. I think that is so helpful to have that perspective. You're so right. And so with that, the other side of that is just that whether you're still dating someone or you're already married, this concept of the one, your soulmate, your perfect match, what that does is it forces you, when anything goes wrong in your marriage, when things get hard, when your spouse does something annoying that you don't like or has bad habits, how easy
Why did
is
you
it?
laugh at that?
Because it happens. Oh my gosh, speaking of which, I have started documenting cabinet doors being left open.
Weren't you trying to make a point right now? We don't need to go down that rabbit hole.
Maybe I'll post them on the Instagram. I am going to start, like, I have a folder of cabinet doors.
So I'm gonna start videoing Molly opening the cabinet door so she can take fake photos of the cabinet doors.
What? That's not true.
Okay,
That's
it's not true. Maybe she did catch me a few times.
I have caught you plenty of times since we recorded that last episode about that. Anyways, if you have this perspective of perfect match, when your marriage gets hard, your brain goes, oh, I must be married to the wrong person. I didn't find my soulmate. This is not my match. This must not be it.
I'm swiping left.
I'm swiping left. I'm out. And I just think that is so important to acknowledge that, like, that is not helpful because no marriage is going to be perfect. Every marriage is going to be hard. I think you choose your hards, which is what we'll get into in a second. But I think just believing there's a perfect match and believing once you find your perfect match, everything's going to be easy. That's just false. That's just false. I think that you are a great match for me. It's still not necessarily easy being married to you.
Yes. That's something to remember. Just because you find a good match doesn't mean it's going to be easy.
Exactly. Look, y'all, with divorce rates near 50%, there is no question getting married is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever make.
That is why we created Ready to Not, our premarital course to help you build a solid foundation for a lasting marriage.
You'll take the world's leading relationship assessment, get a personalized report on the strengths and growth areas of your relationship, and watch lessons where we help you understand your results and give you tools and exercises to grow in 9 different areas.
This is designed to give you structure to have the important conversations you need to have and to get clear on your expectations in everything from finances to family, conflict, sex, roles, faith, and so much more.
Research has proven that investing your time in a course like this will increase your marriage success rate by 30%. Don't just prepare for your wedding day. Invest time preparing for the lifelong marriage that will follow it.
And if you're already married, can we just say that this would make an amazing wedding gift? With Ready to Not, we'll help you move into marriage with clarity and confidence.
And a special discount just for Let's Get Naughty listeners, go to knottedmarriage.com/ready-to-knot and use code LGK25 for $25 off. That's knottedmarriage.com/READYTOKNOT and use code LGK25 for $25 off.
Now back to the episode. Okay, so let's shift a little bit because I think we've
been railing on
soulmates. We've kind of been hard on soulmates and that concept. But what generally can people be looking for? I think there's a few things, but I think just the first foundation when you're looking for someone to marry is shared values. And for us, we just strongly believe that it's our shared faith values. And so we believe that as Christians, if a man and a woman are both chasing Jesus and they both share that faith, and that if they are moving in that same direction, that they are going to come closer together as they move that direction, and that is going to be a unity that they can build their marriage around.
Yeah.
And so we would just say, hey, if you are looking to get married, then that is the starting foundation piece.
Absolutely. That's for sure number one. That is the foundation. Not just like, do we have the same faith? Were we raised in the same church or something? But just even like with that, everything that informs. Do we have the same beliefs about the purpose of marriage? Do we have the same perspective about the sanctity and commitment and covenant of marriage. For us, our faith informs those beliefs, which is what our marriage is built upon.
Yes. So if you share a faith and a Christian faith, then one of the main things that the Bible will speak to in marriage is not to be unequally yoked.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is just a key thing that just plays out so largely in your marriage is, hey, are you guys chasing the same thing as your core values in your faith?
We've shared in previous episodes, having a unifying mission of your marriage, like that helps us so much to come back to when we're feeling a little wonky in our marriage. It's just like, what are we in this for? What are we doing? And for us, that is rooted in our faith. And that's a lasting, substantial thing to build our marriage upon. So we tend to believe more on the other side that two people of the same faith, both chasing boldly after the cross together and seeking to be more like Jesus, can be married.
Yes.
Now, we believe that, but we also know to be true that there are some other layers of compatibility that can provide some additional ease to your marriage. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of people can be married, and I think sharing that foundation is key. But just because you can doesn't mean it's wise. And I think that's just something to remember, that marriage is going to be a challenge, and just personality types and your relationship as it is can make that hard mission either easier or even harder than it is.
Yeah. So regardless of who you marry, marriage is going to be work. But how can you find someone where that work is easier?
Yes.
Is that accurate? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it makes sense.
Okay.
Hopefully it makes sense. But I think one of those big pieces is going to be, it's close to a foundation piece, but the commitment, right? Evaluating someone's commitment and ability to just be rock solid over time.
Yeah. I mean, I love a lot of things about you and our marriage, but there's no question in my mind that our loyalty and just commitment to our marriage, your loyalty to the people that you love, is always been one of my favorite things about you. And I know that our mutual loyalty and commitment to our marriage has made our marriage a lot easier than if either of us was like half invested, or if either of us thought that this was just a thing that we could leave whenever it got hard. Like that is a foundation that has kept us steady even in really hard times. Like, we've been married 5 years. We've already been through really tough stuff. And that's been part of that foundation for us.
I think that's really important. Evaluate as you're looking at partners. I think that's a great thing to evaluate is, hey, what is this person's commitment level and how steady and strong is that over time? And I think that there's a lot of other things. A huge one would be conflict and communication. How are you guys processing things together? Can conflict be a unifying thing, or is it a divisive thing?
And as we've already shared in previous episodes, conflict resolution and communication are skills that you can grow in. So I don't think that that's just like a yes or no checkbox on your list to deciding if it's someone you can marry, because it is an area you will both continue to grow in and hone those skills in. But you want to know you're starting in a solid place, and you want to know that you have someone who will work on those skills and work with you and grow with you. And that's why, again, that commitment and that faith is the foundation, because that's in all of these things we'll mention. That's what you fall back on, right? If communication or conflict comes up and gets hard, that's still what we fall back on.
That's just one of those things that everything is based off of communication and conflict resolution. Anything you deal with, whether it's family, it's your sex life, it's all about communication and conflict resolution. And are you guys becoming more united or more separated?
Yeah. So what other things if there's not one single person out there, what are the other things you look for when choosing the one in quotations? Because here's the truth. Though I don't believe you are my soulmate, as in my twin flame.
Twin flame?
Yeah, that's like what the young people are saying.
Oh, okay.
Is
that like Joe Jonas, like I'm burning up for you? Wow, I sound like I'm 105 years old. Those kids with their new flames and burning. Oh boy.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. Because they grew up on Joe Jonas for sure. It's a joke.
They didn't grow up on Joe Jonas?
No! The Jonas Brothers were like what we grew up on.
Wow.
The Jonas Brothers.
No, the Jonas Brothers were like young for us. That was like during our college, which means it would have been like their middle school.
No. When we were in college, that was like when they were all going their own ways. When we were in middle school is when the Jonas Brothers were like the Jonas Brothers.
No way.
Yes.
All right, fact checker. I don't believe it. We need some Joe Jonas fact checking.
Oh my gosh.
Maybe I'm just not speaking things I know about, and I only really started paying attention.
You know nothing about pop culture. It's fine.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is that even though I don't believe you're my soulmate in the way that we've been talking about cultural soulmates, I know that you are my soulmate, my SOLE mate.
Ooh.
You like that?
Yeah.
You are my soulmate because I married you, because I committed to you and we chose each other. You are my only mate. Like, you are my person.
Forever and always.
Forever and always. So what else goes into choosing your SOLE mate?
SOLE mate.
I mean, like we said, faith and beliefs and commitment, communication are at the foundation.
Yes, I think that those are really probably your starting points. I think there's several other things, and these are honestly things we cover in our premarital course, Ready to Not, and that's why we cover them. These are foundational things that you want to explore about yourself and your partner and then in marriage, but it's sex, family,
finances.
Finances. Why am I blanking on everything?
We only created an entire course on it. Yeah,
communication, conflict.
Yes,
those are in
all
there.
of it. Visions for family, kids, goals, like so many things. That is why we created Ready to Not. Ready to Not is quite literally designed to give you space to have all these conversations and to understand all these things about each other. And this is what we hear all the time from the couples that we mentor. A lot of them go into getting engaged and wanting to get married. Like, they know a lot of these things about each other. They've had a lot of these basic conversations, but there's so many layers to a lot of these conversations that you don't think to have on your own. And
just even having a structured environment for those conversations.
And we just know that creating a safe place to ask those questions that are hard to ask and get into them, like, that is so important. So Ready to Not is ready for you if you are seriously dating or engaged and you want to explore the strengths and weaknesses of your relationship and have a structured space for diving into all those questions. We also have a great free resource that would be a good place to start. Questions to ask to know if you're ready to get married.
Yeah, and this is just a great starting point that, if you're dating and you just want to have a great conversation and just have an hour long sit down and just start those conversations and to just start opening up and kind of take your relationship and your conversations to a deeper level.
Yeah, so that will link in the show notes as well. Just a free resource that you can get with a PDF of questions to walk through, because we really believe those are the questions and those are the fundamentals to picking your person. It's not finding this perfect chemistry match with all these perfect feelings or this perfect meet cute, because we both know our meet cute was not cute.
Well, that wasn't our first meet cute. Do I understand the slang right? Is that when we first met?
Yeah, meet cute is like in a movie or a book when two characters meet and it's like their meet cute is.
I mean, I think we had some good meet cute, but then our first date was not good.
That's true. We'll have to tell our meet cute story at another time.
Yeah, because I mean, when I photobombed and then when I was yelling at you across campus, that was pretty good.
Yeah, you asked me on our first date when you were on the phone with your mom.
Yeah, and I yelled like across campus in the middle of like rush hour with like a million people around, and I was screaming it.
Yeah, we'll save those dirty details for later because that is quite the story. Yeah. But where was I even going with that? Why did I bring up meet cute?
I'm lost. I don't know why you brought up meet cute.
What was I saying? Anyways, that free resource is there for you guys to dive into. That's a great starting point if you're just dating. If you're engaged, maybe just jump right into Ready to Not. But the free resource will be a fun starting point. But that is what we truly believe is the foundation of picking your person.
What has made our relationship special is the work that we've put in and the commitment we've had where we have built something together. And so that's really our message, is that you guys need to build something. It's not about finding the one. It's about what you build.
Yeah. Yeah. And just choosing the one. Once you choose them, they become the one. So to summarize, I would say I really believe this conversation, it's a balance between knowing that marriage is hard work and it's going to take commitment and sacrifice, and trying to choose someone that cuts down on some of that hard work, where you're choosing your work, right? But also knowing that if you find the right person, that doesn't mean marriage won't be any work. Have discernment, choose a good match, but don't fall for the lie that if you chose the right match, it's going to be perfect and easy and not require any work.
I think that there is a lot of wisdom that people can, I think you have your foundation of core values and faith. We think that's really important. But following that, I think that there is a lot of wisdom in just finding someone who you can build together, and that it won't be as hard of a journey. We've seen some couples just fight through very hard personality differences and communication patterns, and it can just be hard. It can be really hard. And there is discernment and wisdom in choosing someone that you have good patterns with.
Yeah. That you're aligned with in many different areas.
If you're married and marriage feels hard, like, that is your mate. And so don't fall for the swiping left and right mindset of, if this marriage is hard, then I married the wrong person.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a lie. The truth is, it's hard, but you need to work on it, and this is your one person to invest. Take the option of other options off of the table.
Yeah, don't even give any mental airtime to wondering if you picked the wrong person. It's just not productive or helpful to think about how your life could be easier if you were with someone else. Water the grass that you've got, nurture and honor and give energy and respect and commitment to the marriage that you're in and the spouse that you picked, and know that you guys can build a beautiful marriage, even with some layers of incompatibility, if you focus on the foundations. So, to wrap it up, advice: if you're already married, don't even waste your time thinking about that stuff. Just focus on what you've got. And if you're not yet married, you haven't chosen your person yet, you haven't made those vows yet, this is the time to be discerning.
Yeah, relook at that list that you think you have in your head and cross out all of the unimportant things, and maybe put those few things.
A whole episode in itself. What's on your list and what should and shouldn't be on your list.
Oh, we should definitely do that in the future.
Ooh, yeah, that'd be a good one. I would love to hear from the listeners what's on their list, and we can give it a thumbs up or a thumbs down.
Yeah, so 2 things we'd like to hear from you guys on is, 1, marriage list and what was on yours and what was not right, or what is on yours, depending on obviously if you're married or dating still. And then two, like what are your beliefs around soulmates? Are we wrong? Are we right? We'd love to hear your opinion.
This is kind of controversial.
Yeah,
People might have different opinions. Definitely check out those resources we mentioned. We'll link them in the show notes. If you're not yet married, that is why we created them, to help you guys feel confident in the choice that you make and knowing that you're choosing not your SOUL mate, but your SOLE mate.
Well, go find your SOLE mate. I can't spell. The English language is not my friend.
Dyslexia is not on your side, but you're doing great. Soulmate. Find your person. Choose your person and let them be your person.
And we will see you for next week's episode.
Bye, y'all.
Bye. Thanks so much for hanging out with us for another episode of Let's Get Naughty.
Remember to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And if you want more encouragement, join us on Instagram and YouTube at Knotted Marriage to check out all the other resources we have to help you build a tighter marriage. If this conversation encouraged you in any way, please consider leaving us a review on whatever platform you're listening and posting a screenshot on social media. That support means more than you know and really helps us reach more couples.
We'll see you for next week's episode. Go get naughty.